Wrestling with Wrestling's past and present.
How old were you?
I was -3.
See, JR is trying to contain Jim Ross.
McFlurry,
It's Mick Foley. Do you see any of the aggro crag? Was any of that left over?
No, unfortunately not.
No?
I'm taking some of that home.
Definitely not is the barn burner that Lee Cassidy and Tiger Ellie Singh was, but we'll leave that there.
We digress.
God, I hope that storyline ends too.
And 6 to 8 weeks later, they mail you a freaking magnet.
Yep. You may know him as the Red Rooster.
It's still real to me, damn it.
He kept making out with his wife. It was weird. So then, I'm waiting for them to put this Selena Vega on a pole match.
And I mean, Big E's got Whale performing in his entrance, so I feel like
Wale.
they would.
Wale.
I don't listen to. Okay, well, I don't listen to him, so I apologize to Wale.
This is in the mail, my good sir. No, it wasn't. Paul.
I feel like Vince is just gonna have them team together and be like, have them called Woo Bro. Like they're just gonna be the Woo Bros. Like, anyway.
Giving us a reason to come here and listen to ourselves talk.
Absolutely, and
And then you can listen to us too.
Strap on and balls only on Wrestling Past and Present.
This is Gangrel, the Vampire Ward, and you're listening to Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.
So, have you heard from Tim at all? I don't even know what's going on right now. I know, like, we have a meeting going, but he's like, have you talked to him at all? I haven't. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I got an email from him to get the. I don't know if you got it, and I couldn't look at it. But it's got
I got the Zoom meeting thing, but
weird. Not really sure. I guess. Yeah. Oh, there's a file. I hope it's not a virus. Tim, if you give me a virus, I swear to God.
Maybe you got hacked.
You may know me as Tim from Wrestling with Wrestling's past and present. But something happened to me last week. A transformation covering WCW 2000. It left me with a chemical imbalance in my brain that has caused me to miss today's episode. I leave it in the hands of my amigos Mongo and Roland. And it's gonna be wonderful!
Well. Okay then.
I guess we're doing this then. Well, this is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present without Tim Kurt, but I'm Roland Fulis.
I'm scared, but I'm Mongo.
That's interesting. I don't know what to do here. This is weird. All right.
If anything, I thought getting him to say fuck would break him, not WCW.
Yeah.
But...
Apparently, WCW 2000 broke Tim. Maybe he's off looking for the Lake of Reincarnation. I can't even say it. Hopefully he finds it, though. Goodness.
If not, or at least something to get that memory out. But thankfully, TNA Hard Justice helped get that memory out for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was, and we discussed this a little bit, that we were happy it was, a good show. But when you compare it to WCW, anything's a good show. So it really was a pretty good show. Yeah, so I guess I'll host this thing then, and I'll try to do my best Tim impression, and we'll go from there. I mean, that's about all we can do, right?
Show must go on. That's what Tim would want. Oh,
yeah.
I don't know about Broken Tim now, but original Tim, maybe.
And I mean, that's kind of how the show started off. The show had to go on with the untimely death of Chris Candido. They did the 10-bell salute in the ring. So I mean, I guess it's fitting in a way that we're pushing on without Tim for this episode. And, it's unfortunate. We discussed it a little bit when we did Lockdown that it was the last appearance from Chris Candido. So I want to just highlight that a little bit at the beginning of the show. That's how the show went on the air, was his picture in the ring and the 10-bell salute, which was a good touch for someone that had been in the business for a long time.
No, I agree. And, without jumping ahead too much, when they talked doing a promo with the Naturals, they kind of mentioned him and give him the credit he deserved, because it was a shocking death like we covered on our Lockdown episode, and you just reiterated it wasn't expected. They still don't really know what happened. There's lots of rumors and innuendo, to steal a phrase. But it's just a wrestler gone too soon. And unfortunately, with wrestling, we always lose them young, or we always lose them shockingly. I mean, our condolences go out to the family of Jerome Young, aka New Jack, as well, who just passed
Yeah.
away last night. We got the news he had a heart attack. I know he's a very controversial wrestler, but just like Chris Candido, you know, when someone does something for a business, you know, regardless of what they are outside the ring, you know, as fans, it sucks to see him go, because it's people you grew up with as part of your history.
Well, and you got to think, especially in New Jack's case, like, no disrespect meant, but his body, the stuff he put his body through, not just in the ring, but I'm sure, you know, the chemicals that he was putting in his body over the years probably didn't help either, unfortunately, because, you know, the guy, nobody's that crazy and totally straight the whole time. You know, not to make light of it, but I mean, it's just, it's too bad when you see anybody, you know, it doesn't even have to be, you know, there's people out there that, you know, I have, you know, friends that they have friends or somebody that they know that's died, you know, of a massive heart attack, and they ain't even 40 years old yet. And it's like, dude, I'm only 35. Like, holy crap. Like, makes you see how life really is, unfortunately. And, you know, starting off on a somber note, I mean, the Candido thing, even though I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of Candido, I can appreciate his work. So it, you know, it was a proper way, I think, to start the show. And yeah, like you said, condolences to New Jack's family as well.
It's one of the hardest thing about, like you said, getting older, because you not only do you see, you know, your friends go down certain paths, but seeing things whether it's movies or TV, you know, we've had shocking celebrity deaths over, but for wrestling fans especially, I feel like you bond more with a wrestler when you watch wrestling than you do with an actor, because, you know, yeah, you may be seeing a kayfabe character, you may be seeing a gimmick, but like with Chris Candido's case, that's really hard to say altogether. He didn't really have a gimmick, so you kind of felt like you were seeing the real person. So seeing someone like him go was really sad, but seeing that they paid really good respects to start the show kind of at least put a good taste in your mouth. Like, okay, it's going to be a somber show, but it should be a good show, and I think it starts off well.
To quote Bruce Pritchard quoting Jim Ross, "It's the body Donnas." Like, you know, it's just, yeah, it's just, it was a nice touch. I think that, you know, there's been some times over the years where any company's done, you know, I mean, they just did the fake 10-bell salute to Daniel Bryan's career, and even that was done, you know, it was done. It was annoying, but it was done on purpose, and it had meaning behind it. Obviously, he's not dead or anything, but you know, you know what you're getting when you do this stuff. So it's hard to beat. Yeah, it's hard to beat when it's done correctly. You know, it's an emotional, you know, no matter what, it's an emotional thing. And even, like I said, even the fans of Daniel Bryan, when Roman and Paul Heyman and Booger Picker Jey Uso were, you know, doing their, if you saw our picture, that's why I said that. But anyways, you know, when it's done right, it's a touching tribute that is the least that any of these people can do, any of these promotions can do to celebrate the career of some of these people who have gone down the road with them for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, it's always one of the hardest things. Like, I still remember when we did the Brody Lee show, and, you know, we talked about the tribute they did and how it was a tearjerker. Just something as simple, it's like you said, simple as a 10-bell salute or belts in the ring. And, you know, this, like you said, they had everything in the ring, and they had the title belt in the ring too. So it was like, it hit you in the feels. You're like you said, I wasn't the biggest Chris Candido fan because I didn't really know much about him. But going back and rewatching this helps. Like, damn, I wish I had known more, because he was talented, and it was a shame. And I'm just glad that TNA was smart enough to pay the right respects and, you know, not turn it to a storyline like some other companies who shall remain nameless have done.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's. I guess, like I said, it's kind of like we're putting the training wheels are coming off for the two of us today, because usually our crutch is Tim, but clearly he's broken, so we're gonna have to go without it. I'll run down the matches and we'll see how it goes. So the first match was a dark match, was a pre-show match for the winner would get a match in the gauntlet for the gold match later on in the pay-per-view. They get a shot. It was Shark Boy defeated David Young. And again, when you see the match, you know that Shark Boy was in it. So it was just about 6.5 minutes. It was obviously just a match to get the crowd going. Shark Boy was over, like Rover. He's still over. I mean, he can come out today and people are still going to be, you know, when he had the Stone Cold gimmick too, at one point when he was Shark Boy and Stone Cold, something so simple got over a lot more than I think anybody thought it would.
No, I agree. To this day, I still can't believe that we had Shark Boy get massively over like he did. But I think it was kind of like a Eugene character. It was a character you never knew it was going to be and I don't mean that as like insult the Shark Boy. I meant like the gimmick was one you never knew was going to get to anywhere. It was never going to be a championship person. It was never going to be anything more than a comedy gimmick. You know, unfortunately, what our truth has become, like, you know, it's never going to be world main event, but you enjoy the gimmick. It's fun. You pop for it. And like you said, the Shark Boy 316 gimmick. I mean, unfortunately, it's part of the criticism of TNA too, because they did a lot of parody. They did a lot of gimmick infringement. So this was them kind of trying to be like, look, we have our own Stone Cold. He actually just showed up on Sammy Guevara's vlog recently. Sammy wanted a cameo from Stone Cold, and if you watch it, he's like, "Oh, I got you one." Fuego del Sol's like, "I got you a great cameo," and it's frickin' Shark Boy doing his Stone Cold impression.
That's hilarious. All right, so that was on the pre-show, and then the opener for the actual pay-per-view was Team Canada, Petey Williams and Eric Young with Coach Scott Dimore taking on the tag team of Apollo and Sonny Siaki, with Team Canada getting the win in about 8 minutes. This match was a decent starter. We talked a little bit about this the last time, that some of the wrestlers that they had in Team Canada are, I don't want to use the word underrated. I just think that a lot of people don't realize how good they were. I'm not going to say underrated because people know who Petey Williams and Eric Young are if you followed it, so you can appreciate what they've done. But even Apollo and Sonny Siaki, that was a pretty good match, honestly, to start the show. So I think the Team Canada, you kind of have to have them get some cheap wins to keep building up the heat, because they were at this point pretty over as a heel faction, really.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great match. My only really complaint, it was kind of the same finish as Lockdown, the whole interference by Demore. So I felt like, from what I remember, that was a lot of their shtick was like the manager is going to interfere and get the win, or something was going to interfere and cause the win. But again, it's to get the cheap heat. But if you get rid of like the bad booking, like ending of it was, you're right. It was a solid match. I mean, I don't and didn't know much about Apollo and Sonny. I can't even say his name, so I'm going to try.
Sonny Siaki.
Thank you. But EY and Petey Williams, I obviously know a lot about, and I agree with you. To echo your point, it's almost like they were known, they just weren't well known. So it's like they were overlooked because they weren't a promotion that didn't really, they were like the cousin who came to the party that you kind of remember growing up with, but unless you hung out with that cousin, you don't really know them. And it's a shame because, they both tried to come into WWE and for other reasons just didn't work out. And because they didn't get that exposure, they didn't get that popularity, but they were talented wrestlers. So that's one thing I enjoy about rewatching is we get to see them again in their prime. And Eric Young in his prime, watch it and him develop to what he is now is crazy, because even now he still goes and he's still great.
Well, and that's just more proof of what happens when you leave NXT to go to the main roster. Think about Sanity being over at NXT. They arrive on the main roster and do almost nothing.
Not to talk about them, because again, we say it all the time, but that's the problem with any type of promotion. You can't keep booking the same type of matches or just hoard talent and not use them. And that's one thing I will say that this card did, is you got to see some talent that maybe you wouldn't see otherwise. And so it was nice to see. This is what happens. You can have different matches lead to different storylines and still use your full roster. You don't need to have 150 people to make a solid company, because you could have 150 to 200 people like WWE does, but you see 20 of them. So what does that do when you're seeing 10% of your roster every week? It does nothing. But TNA, AEW, ROH, they could have 200 people and maybe use 60, 70 people, still bitch. But you're still getting 3 times as much exposure as other companies.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I know ever since they started the new Dark, people have been complaining that some of the the more known wrestlers are still going over. It's like, yeah, that's the point. They're trying to bring these lesser known talents up to their level. They're trying to pull them up to that level, and that's what that elevation is. The point of that show. And people are like, oh, they still have people like Britt Baker winning on it. It's like, yeah, because they have a match with someone you don't know and try to get them over to raise their stock. That's how it works. Sorry, folks, for the people out there that are dumb marks that don't get that's how it works. That's how it works. You're not going to get over on your own on a YouTube show that is essentially a house show. It's really all it is. A house show with commentators is what Dark and Dark Elevation are. And people are like, oh, it should just be people nobody knows. No, because then nobody would watch it. No offense. Their viewership would go way down. You have to have known people on the show, and that they perform, they bring the other people up. And that's essentially what they were trying to do here with Team Canada, trying to bring Apollo and Sonny Siaki to the masses and bring their and like I said, the match itself was a pretty good match.
No, it was. And one of the big things they do is pretty much everyone on here had non-exclusive contracts on TNA, so you would see a mixture of New Japan at the time, and you'd see AJ go over to New Japan and work with Ring of Honor. You'd see, you know, all the different players on this card, you know, the Outwash, you know, Sean Waltman, you know, coming from WWE, but they also would wrestle in Ring of Honor. So you had a mixture of different promotions. So this match was to help kind of get those other promotions noticed too. It's what's good for wrestling. It's what we need to keep the product fresh. I mean, if you're just one company and you just run wrestling, people are going to get stale. And like you said, you have to have known talent. So having Eric Young, Pete Williams, who are rising TNA stars, put over some younger talent helps, to use your word earlier, elevate that talent to, you know, build their roster. But I feel like wrestling fans complain no matter what, unfortunately. And
Oh yeah.
this one, there's not much, besides the ending, not much to complain about.
No, like I said, it was a solid way to start the show. They both, and Apollo and Sonny Siaki are kind of bigger guys, but they seem like they could go for taller, bigger guys. I mean, they weren't in there just doing. They were doing some decent spots for guys. The worst part about it was Siaki almost took a header on the ramp on the way down, but he almost pulled the Mandy Rose. And other than that, you know, there was nothing wrong with the match. And you know, like I said, I other than maybe. I think the only other match on the card that could have started the show might have been the Daniels and Shocker match. That might have been the only other match that I think would have started the show properly, and been maybe a better choice than this match to start the show. But I think they did fine with it. So.
No, I agree. It's a good way to start its pay-per-view off, because that's one thing, like we talked about off air. TNA has great wrestlers. It's a talented friggin' roster.
Well, and like you mentioned about the New Japan thing, I mean, what did AEW have lead off their show, you know, this past Wednesday?
Exactly.
They had Yuji Nagata against Ambrose, or Moxley, whatever you want to call him. I call them both. It's funny because Ambrose will give me crap about it. You know, it's like when he first went to AEW, like he's not Ambrose anymore. And I still call him. I'm just used to calling them both. But you know, fans, you know who it is. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just proving Mongo's point that if you can't work together with certain, you know, I mean, obviously we know they're working with Impact as well. They're working with New Japan. Think of all the talent that gives you. That now takes your talent pool of 40 or 50, and it doubles it or triples it.
It's
so
best
it's
for
a no-brainer.
business. You know, even Triple H has gone on record and said, you know, he'd love to do crossovers with promotion sometimes because it only helps the business. You know,
Yeah.
Everyone has this stupid rivalry of, AEW sucks compared to WWE. Look, if you're a wrestling fan, you should enjoy everything because you want more product, you want more exposure. And that's what TNA offered back in the day, is that it offered a solution, because, you know, this was WWE had been dead for 4 years at this point, but this was something different. So you didn't have to see the same thing on WWE week in and week out. But I remember, you know, watching, just like the Monday Night Wars wasn't the same, but I would have 2 nights of wrestling. Now we have 5 nights of wrestling. As a wrestling fan, I'm stoked. And this right here is a good preview of what things could be like if these relationships work.
Exactly. All right. So the second match on the main card, third match on the show altogether, was a intergender tag match of a team of Michael Shane and Trinity against Chris Sabin and Tracy in just over 10 minutes. The match itself was, I mean, you know, not terrible. Both Michael Shane and Sabin can go. Trinity and Tracy a little iffy in spots, but it wasn't terrible. This was the patented Vince Russo. It's a swerve, bro.
Yep.
And it ended up that both Tracy and Michael Shane turned on Trinity and Sabin, and that's how it went. So technically, Michael Shane and Trinity got the win, even though Trinity got turned on in the match.
Yeah, just terrible booking, just because I don't think they really know what to do. They were trying to push Michael Shane, who actually, I'm pretty sure he got sued from what I remember hearing about by WWE, because I think there was a Mike Shane at the time. So he becomes Matt Bentley again. So he flip-flopped. So that's what killed his career essentially too, is he just kept changing his gimmick. So you never knew you never knew if he was a face or a heel. So this match just kind of showed his career in a nutshell. They didn't know what to do with him. He was a talented worker, but he was all over the place. Chris Sabin, I like a lot better. I actually was hoping he actually would pick up the win, because him with Alex Shelley, the Motor City Machine Guns, probably one of the best tag teams on the planet. And if you've never seen a Motor City Machine Guns match, just watch Motor City Machine Guns versus Young Bucks in Impact or in Ring of Honor, and you'll probably never watch another tag team match again the same.
Yeah, Sabin, I think, and at this point, Sabin hasn't quite become that Chris Sabin yet either. He's on his way, and he's had, you know, some success, mightily successful going into this, but he definitely, after this, like you said, blossoms, ends up teaming with Alex Shelley, and, you know, off and on for, you know, since they started to now. So it's, you know, it was funny to see Tracy come out and she's like making out with Chris Sabin. It's weird. And then at the end, she's jumping into Matt Bentley's arms, and it's I don't know. It was weird. It was really weird. And they said in the last episode when we watched Lockdown, they were saying that he's Shawn Michaels, cousin or whatever, and that's some of the reason why he took the name Michael Shane, to try to play off that. And so yeah, just no offense, if you're somebody's cousin or if you were trained by somebody, you don't need to name yourself after them. You could have been Matt Bentley from the get-go, because if that's your name, other than the intellectual property, nobody can steal it. So like if it's your legitimate name, like, I mean, it's not like AEW couldn't have John Cena just show up. I mean, it's not going to happen, but I'm just saying it's not like WWE like, you can't use John Cena's name. It's like, no, you can. It's his name. Plain and simple. Right. And so
and they try to do that a lot. And it's funny you say that, because Nia Jax enters the chat when you talk about using your cousin's name to try to get over, because that's the problem. Is like, yeah, he's a cousin, but look at your own, family history. I have cousins, I don't even know their names because I have so many cousins. So like, yeah. And apologize to my cousin Robert who listens to the show. I'm not talking about you, buddy. I obviously know your name, but like I literally have cousins who I don't know their names because I have a big family. So this could be one where Shawn Michaels is like, I vaguely remember him. I think I trained him because it was a favorite of my uncle, but
right, yeah, you don't know the situation, but
this should have been the pre-show.
Yeah, well, and it is funny when you see a close-up of Michael Shane. You actually do see some Shawn Michaels in him. I will say that he was built similar to him, kind of had a similar look, and so obviously they were playing on that. But yeah, this match, out of all the matches, this might have been the one that was probably no one really cared that much about, honestly. But again, it wasn't a terrible match. The wrestling was okay at spots. It's just it was the double swerve, bro.
Yep. I think this kind of harps back to our last time we talked about TNA, the criticism we gave, and it's not like a bad thing. It's just how they stack their matches just doesn't make sense. And I think people forget WWE's good at that. AEW's gotten really good at that. That some promotions, some promoters just have that knack of knowing what matches to put where. And this should have been the pre-show, and I think Shark Boy should have been here. I think they should have just been swapped, because I think Shark Boy would have been a better match for the pay-per-view, because he was good on camera too, because he had good facial expressions.
Right. Well, and
even in a mask.
Right. Well, and even if you wanted Shark Boy to have a match, you could have had it. The winner gets the last spot in the gauntlet too. There's so many things you could have done that would have made it still mean more than this match. No, and really, this match was there for the ending of this. Well, the payoff to the storyline.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but thankfully it gets better.
Yeah. If we were living off the payoff in the storyline, we'd both be broke. But anyway, so moving on to the next match, it was originally supposed to be Raven and Jeff Hardy. I don't know. Do you have any idea where Jeff was, other than what was it? Because they just said he couldn't make it. They didn't get into the details of it too much. So I went down the rabbit hole a little bit, and I couldn't get a. I'm hoping this wasn't, drug related, that he didn't show up, or if he had another booking. I don't know exactly. Like I said, I couldn't find. I was hoping to find details, so I figured I'd ask you on air to see if you'd heard or found anything. But anyways, Waltman ends up taking the spot of Jeff Hardy, so it was Raven against Sean Waltman in a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, I know it was supposed to be, like you said, it was supposed to be the rematch from Lockdown, because they had that banger of a match in Lockdown, and this was a few, but it sounded like this is when his troubles kind of started. Not so much drugs, but just his not caring attitude. Because the big reason he left WWE the first time was he got burned out. He just said he was sick of it is a ridiculous schedule. I personally couldn't do 300 days a year and only get to see my family 1 or 2 days. Like, I just feel like mentally it just gets tiresome. Like, traveling is great. Traveling is fun. I've had to travel for work too. It's fun for a minute. And then it's just like reality sets in. You're like, oh, yay, a hotel. Oh, yay, another long car ride. Oh, yay, another long overnight, And I think he got burned out. And then he came here to get a fresh schedule. But unfortunately, TNA didn't have a good backstage culture, essentially. And I don't mean like they were toxic. There was too many cooks, and they couldn't corral it. So it was just, I think the inmates ran the asylum, to steal a popular phrase. And Jeff just didn't care. He was like, whatever, I'll get there when I get there. And from what I remember hearing, and from what Wikipedia has said, it just sounds like he had travel issues. But the rumors I remember hearing at the time was he just didn't want to show up, so he just no-showed. And I'm pretty sure he got suspended or fined. But he said it was travel issues, but all the boys in the back kind of leaked it to the dirt sheets that, no, he just didn't want to show up because he didn't care.
Not that, like I said, that's what I thought. I couldn't find the definitive answer either. So I mean, we may never know exactly what happened, but we can pretty much assume that that's that's the situation that happened. This match went about 13, well, actually exactly 13 minutes on the nose, and it was more or less a hardcore match is what it was. It was a weird hardcore match with part of a cage on one side, and just the gimmick of this match was stupid in my opinion. It could have just been a hardcore match. It didn't need to be this weird, because like I said, the match itself wasn't terrible. It was a decent match, but Raven picks up the win over Sean Waltman in the match. So Raven gets his payback against Jeff Hardy, pseudo Jeff Hardy here.
Take that! I beat up your former coworker.
Yeah, I beat up a guy you left WWE with. Yeah, it's like Raven, you were there too.
And who I'm still calling X-Pac, even though legally I'm not supposed to.
Yeah, that was in the promo. That was funny too. He was like, "Yeah, so who's his replacement? X-Pac?" It's like, no, I mean, yes, but no. Legally, no, but physically, yes, that's what it is.
I just this is the one thing I was telling Emma last night. I don't understand is why, like, some people either come up with a terrible gimmick name or they use their real name. I feel like Sean Waltman, he had 3 gimmicks. I know they're all owned by WWE, but he couldn't come up with another gimmick. He had to just be Sean Waltman in his X-Pac attire. Like, it was just, it hurts my brain because I was like, X-Pac. No, that's totally X-Pac. Even when he was 6-Pac, he had X-Pac's attire. Like, you couldn't have changed your attire up or tried to be slightly different. And just, yeah, it should have just been a hardcore match. Like, this is Vince Russo. Like, no, bro, it's the Clockwork Orange House of Fun match, bro. What's the difference between a hardcore match? Nothing, bro, but we're going to have this weird-ass shit you got to look at the whole time. That makes no sense until the end, which the cage is going to fall on him, bro. Like,
yeah, we're going to use zip ties, bro. And then when he throws him into it, it's going to let go. It's going to be awesome, bro. It's like, no, it's not. It's, like I said, the match itself, your typical hardcore spots. It wasn't anything overly special. And I assume that one can only assume that the part of the reason why they had that cage there was to play off the first match between Hardy and Raven, but it didn't matter because Jeff Hardy wasn't there.
So that's why, and they knew probably that morning of the event. And it's like, why would you just have Raven come out with his trash can? Fans would have popped if he came out with the trash can full of weapons because that was his shtick. I'm like, no. That was Vince Russo 101. That's one thing I can't stand about Vince Russo is he'll take a hardcore match or a standard match. He'll put a stupid-ass name on it. It's like, so it's a theme? Okay, cool, but this isn't prom. We don't need Enchantment Under the Sea. We don't need a theme. We know what a prom is. It's a school dance. We don't need a fancy freaking backdrop.
Right, exactly. So moving on from this slightly forgettable match with X-Pac in it, who legally shouldn't have been in it, thanks to Raven, you have a tag team match of Monty Brown, the Alpha Male, and the Outlaw, which was Badass Billy Gunn, for those people that don't remember from the previous show. Obviously they could use X-Pac's name on the pay-per-view, but they couldn't use Billy Gunn's. Now that I think of it, that's hilarious. That just got me. Sorry. Anyway, so Monty Brown and the Outlaw against Diamond Dallas Page and Ron the Truth Killings. And originally this was supposed to be BG James. They said he had travel issues. But as you'll see later on in the show, he made it out for the gauntlet for the gold match. So clearly storyline travel issues, I would imagine. I don't think it was legitimate travel issues from the way it seemed. But they were playing up that the 2 former tag team partners, the New Age Outlaws, didn't want to face each other, what they were playing out. So this match, actually, for being thrown together the way it wasn't bad. The chemistry wasn't as good as I'd hoped it was going to be. But the match itself, even for Monty Brown not being the best in-ring wrestler, this match was decent. It really, again, most of the matches on this card weren't great, but they also weren't terrible.
No, it was definitely worth the watch, and it was kind of sad too because this was DDP's last match in TNA. So this is essentially like his unofficial retirement until he would have his sporadic Royal Rumble appearances or his AEW final match. Like, this was pretty much his last time as a full-time wrestler. Like, he just quietly retired. So that was always kind of weird to me because I knew it was in a match with R-Truth because I remember him talking about it on a podcast once where they said, what was your last full-time match? He's like, it was a tag team with my brother Ron. And I never understood what he meant. I'm like, oh yeah, Ron Killings, because K-Quick, Ron Killings, R-Truth, whatever you want to call him, the man of 3 names. But one thing I will point out, holy crap, I've forgotten how good R-Truth is in the ring. Like that Vader bomb to the headbutt to the crotch was probably my favorite spot, where he goes up, you think he's gonna do like a Vader bomb, and then he just legit like free falls headfirst in the dude's crotch. Like that was great.
And I will say that this was back in 05, and R-Truth looks the same today.
The dude doesn't age.
I think
Speaking of found in the Lake of Reincarnation, R-Truth found the friggin' Lake of Youth.
Yeah, no kidding. Found the fountain of youth. He found the ocean of youth. Yeah, no, it's amazing to look back and see. You know, the dude looks the same. He literally, it's been 16 years. He looks exactly the same.
I think, but then it makes me. It's like, oh, and then he goes back to WWE. He gets so popular in TNA, and he goes back to WWE, and he's a great comedy wrestler. I love his comedy. He's one of the funniest wrestlers I think I've ever seen. And it's like, but look at his skills in the ring, and nobody utilizes it. He basically he's jobbed out WWE his whole career, and that's not fair because he's so talented. And this match shows like you could have had him, and even someone like Ricochet. They could have had a match to help Ricochet kind of get up. He could have had a match with Aleister Black to help them have them be a veteran, but put over meaningful people, not just, oh, we're gonna have Lars Sullivan come out and beat the living dog shit out of R-Truth for no reason. And oh wait, now he's future Endeavor, and R-Truth's still there because he's loyal as fuck.
Well, and then you have the spots too. Like off the top of my head, the two spots I can think of, and I don't want to make this about R-Truth, but the spot where he comes out in the Royal Rumble and grabs the ladder and tries to climb up to grab the Money in the Bank briefcase that's not there. He puts the ladder up, climbs up, and he's like, oh. that shot of him looking up, reaching for nothing is hilarious. And then there was another spot where he came out, interrupted Kane, and the music plays, he interrupts him, and Kane, he says this thing, and Kane's like, "You're not even in this match. Like, why are you out here?" And he's like, "Oh, my bad," and he just leaves. It's like some of the stuff he does is so simple but hilarious. It's just that he, like you said, for him being a loyal servant to Vincent Kennedy McMahon, has kept him relevant and on TV. And it's unfortunate that they don't use his ability as much as they used to. But he's definitely got a shtick there, and some of the stuff he does is just hilarious. So.
If he's not someone that teaches WB promo classes in the future, then they're missing out, because that's one thing I can see for him when he's done his in-ring work is he needs to teach promo classes, because he's one of the best on the mic. He, like you said, that promo of like, "My bad, dog," and him just walking out, you're like, that's awesome. Like I pop every time I see R-Truth. Like he's one of my favorite parts of WWE is seeing R-Truth, and this match showed his skills and it showed his humor, like his humor in wrestling. Like my dream match, I think, would be R-Truth in his prime and Orange Cassidy in their prime.
Yeah, that would probably be really good, actually. Yeah. Speaking of that, I hope Orange Cassidy's good from his match this past week with Pac. I know they mentioned that he was okay, but he looked loopy as shit. No other way to describe it. He Orange Cassidy got his bell rung pretty good in that match. But moving on, this is from here on out, the card really picks up, I think. You have a tag team match for the NWA World Tag Team Championship. You have the Naturals, Andy Douglas and Chase Stevens, the champions, coming in to face AMW, America's Most Wanted, Wildcat Chris Harris, Cowboy James Storm, in about 14 minutes here. And it was, like I said, this is where the card really picks up. This match was an absolute, I mean, we use the term banger a lot on the show. This match was really good.
Well, I mean, we can't use star ratings because other people use that. So I think bangers are rating. Like,
well, if it was in the Tokyo Dome, it would have been.
I was gonna say, I think we pretty much use clusterfuck for the bad matches and bangers for the good ones. Yep. So that's our rating system.
Yeah. From 1 being the clusterfuck and 5 being the banger. There's like, okay, 3 is like decent, and then there's like, it's just And
then we have your meh. I mean, that's a popular rating too. Meh.
Yeah.
No, this match was decent, and like you said at the opening of the show, the Naturals, paid tribute to Chris Candido, and it was nice because you could tell they're all friends. You could tell they were working it into the storyline, but not as a storyline. So I appreciated it. And America's Most Wanted, like I said last time, I'm a huge mark for them. So just seeing them get to wrestle again is awesome for me because they're so talented. And this match was just 4 athletes wrestling, told a good story, and the right people went over.
Well, and it also shows you, especially in the case of the Naturals, that they weren't in a forced storyline. They had supposedly, they say they had this connection with Candido, and you could tell they did. You didn't have to prove that they did. You didn't have to believe they did. You could tell just by watching that there was a connection to those two and Chris Candido's passing. So,
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Shane Douglas, Andy Douglas, what the heck we're calling him, but that was a solid match in general. And like you said, you could see the raw emotion. It was actually kind of hard to watch because you could see they were both emotional
Yeah.
wrestling. Like they didn't want to be there, but they knew they had to be there because the show must go on with when things like that happen, because that's what most wrestlers would want. But personally, I think if my friend had died, I don't think I could go out and perform. I think I would just rather be part of a tribute. But like, even going, I know we already talked about it, going back to like the Brody Lee or the Eddie Guerrero show, seeing the wrestlers wrestle on those shows, it's heartbreaking. And this right here it's another. It's like, oh damn it! Oh my god, I thought we were over these heartbreaking matches.
Well, and then going again, harping on the Brody Lee thing, then you have spots where like Rowan comes out and he's bawling his eyes out, and so there's good and bad, and obviously when you're a well liked and loved person, even in any industry, you can tell when people are good and they deserve. And that's the thing I will say, Candido, for knocking that he's probably had in his career of like just being an average or decent wrestler or serviceable or a good hand, to quote JR, it definitely showed that the person Chris Candido was appreciated in this show, because they appreciated the life and the person that he was versus the performer. So that I will say that's the main difference when you have somebody pass away in the business like a Brody Lee. You can tell what he meant to the people as a person, not just a performer.
No, I agree. And like you said earlier, when you're talking about the dumb marks, unfortunately, what I've noticed is Twitter's a cesspool of. I know we want you to follow us on Twitter and all of our socials, obviously, but Twitter is an absolute cesspool. Like, just seeing some of the comments and some of the wrestlers, like, people forget that these are still real human beings portraying these characters. Like, they almost forget that, yeah, it's wrestling, but some of them, and I'm not trying to use the actor works, I don't want to insult them, but they're essentially acting, they're kayfabing it, they're performing, and obviously Chris Candido, if he's playing heels, probably not a dick. He was obviously well liked based on this. Mm-hmm. And people will just say things, and I mean, like with New Jack, his controversy, but some of the things people are saying are just downright mean. It's like his kid's gonna grow up and see that tweet one day. Like, you don't have to be a dick, Learn from Bambi, learn from Thumper. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything. You don't have to say something to be a dick. It's different if you personally don't like someone, you don't have to mention it. Guess what? If someone I don't like passed away, I'm not going to sit there and blast them on social media, because that's just not what you do. But Chris here was the exact opposite. It was nice to see that everyone had nice nods and gestures Chris Candido, because he was obviously well liked. But I'm glad that he's not around during the Twitter era, because I couldn't imagine some of the negative shit that would probably come out.
Well, and speaking of that, I don't know if you caught Grilling JR this past Thursday, but I listened to it, and he even mentioned, JR did at one point, he the show they covered was right after he had just come back recently from having one of his Bell's palsy attacks, and he still gets pictures and stuff tweeted at him, like, and JR's like, I don't need to see it, I lived it. Like, you don't need to keep showing me like how bad my face looked and stuff. He's like, I live it. He's like, I can't smile. He goes, I was on my way to see my granddaughter graduate from high school, and it hit me that she's never seen her grandfather smile because I can't. He's like, so like stuff like that, like, as much as they're people, dude. Like that's the, like, you have people out there that are on Twitter purposely being assholes and being mean and saying mean stuff. They're human beings. Like, like, granted, obviously the whole mass transit thing with New Jack, like, the Dark Side of the Ring covered that, and it was an unfortunate situation. That kid shouldn't have been there in the first place. So here's the thing. We're gonna go down the rabbit hole for a second. Here's the thing. That kid deceived the company, and he got, hurt. I'm not saying he deserved it, but he should not have been there. So for people to give New Jack a little bit of a negative play on that situation, the kid shouldn't have been there in the first place, because right. before the match started, he went over it and said, "You know how to bleed, right? You know how to blade, right?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I can do it." And then he didn't. So New Jack took it upon. I mean, yeah, he went a little bit far. I'm not going to even try to deny that. Yeah, he did, but he wouldn't have taken liberties with another performer like that if they hadn't been in a place they shouldn't have been in the first place. You're not going to take a Chris Candido and start stabbing him with a scalpel in the head. He's not going to let it happen. Like that's the difference. You have somebody totally inexperienced in it that shouldn't have been there in the first place. And yes, New Jack went a little bit too far with it. But that also was eons ago. Let it go. Yeah, New Jack's a little bit of a polarizing figure because he's done certain things here and there. Everybody has a dark side. Everybody. and you find it out when people are president. You find out some of the stuff that Trump did. You're always going to find out negative shit about people, and there's just no, when they pass away, there's no sense in, like you said, his kid's going to see this stuff. It's not his kid's fault that some of the stuff is the parent did 20 years ago. They don't need to keep reliving that. That would be like if you have Benoit's kid reminded daily that Benoit went nuts and killed his family. Like, you don't need to tweet Benoit's kid. Like, it's the same situation. You don't need to be like, hey, remember when your dad killed your mom? And no, you don't do that. Just like this situation, there's no reason. People in the world that do that it's like you said, it's a cesspool, and it's just people that think it's hilarious. They're out there to try to get retweets and everything else. Sooner or later, it's going to catch up with you. Karma is a bitch, and if you're going to go ahead and say certain things and tweet certain things that even after you read it, you're like, oh, dude, I really shouldn't post this, but it's funny. No, it's not. It's not. So, again, I know we kind of went down the rabbit hole there for a second, but I wanted to get that out there that, even for all the negative stuff that's happened to New Jack, or that's been said or whatever, and there's no reason to hold his family accountable at this point, because they were just along for the ride. They didn't do any of this stuff, and there's a reason this stuff happened.
No, it was just a bad situation overall for the match transit instance. It's definitely, I think people need to watch. Darkseid does a great job telling all these stories. And unfortunately, there is a dark side of wrestling. Like you said, everyone has a dark side. Everyone has things that, and if our lives were in the public domain, some of us would have things come out that maybe won't put us in a good light. There's things that I know I've said in my past that if it was ever on social media, I would have been crucified and burned at the stake. And it doesn't mean there's malice intent behind everything. It just means sometimes situations you get put in control. We're all human beings. We're emotional creatures. We do things. We're reactionary, and it just bothered me. I had to say, because I stupidly scrolled Twitter last night, trying to find out more about New Jack, and I just see all that, and it's like, I may not have been the biggest fan of him, because just he did take it too far, but as a person, I'm not going to sit there and down another human being. I have sympathy to his family, because I couldn't imagine if that was my friend or my relative, and just seeing people bash, even just little things that happen. Like you said, the sins of your father shouldn't make you pay. Like if I had to pay for the things my father did, oh boy, I wouldn't be able to cover that check.
Right. And then, that's, I guess the moral of this little kind of rabbit hole tangent we just went on was just be nice to people. Is it that hard to be nice to people? It's really not. But anyways.
Make Foley's our gospel. Have a nice day.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's just too bad that there's people out there like that. But anyhow, moving along, we have 3 more matches on the card. The next match is Christopher Daniels, the Fallen Angel, coming in as the TNA X Division champion, and he faces Shocker. And at Lockdown, Shocker won the 4-way match to become the #1 contender to get this opportunity. Again, Shocker was the guy I thought might have been Alberto Del Rio the first time I saw him, because he kind of looked like him a little bit, but not the same guy. Anyhow, this match, again, like I said, from the Naturals and A&W's match, this card really did pick up. And this match, like I said, this is the only other match I could have saw them starting the show with, because this match was this match was TNA. It was total nonstop action. It was a quick, fast-paced match with some higher spots. And, Daniels, he may have just retired this past Wednesday. That's one of the things also that is pretty cool about watching these shows. You see, these guys have connections to modern day. I mean, you have in the main event, you have AJ Styles, who now has an epic goatee that set the internet ablaze this past Monday. So, like, there's certain things you go back and watch, and, you really, the nice thing about this match is it makes you appreciate the performer that Christopher Daniels was and still is to an extent. I know, Daniels didn't have his cleanest match against the Young Bucks with Frankie Kazarian. I know he botched the BME. They said he slipped or he couldn't see because of the blood. I mean, if you see the picture they tweeted out of his eye, he got busted open the hard way. Like his eye is jacked. So let's just give the guy credit. And it just shows you, it gives you a better appreciation for what these guys were in their prime. And like you said about R-Truth and Orange Cassidy in their primes, the match, it just gives you an appreciation for the performer and the matches they could put on.
No, I agree. I think this is a great match. I unfortunately think, to go back to Ida, I think he slipped on his own blood, because there was just blood everywhere. But yeah, this match was Christopher Daniels in his prime. This shows how good of a performer he actually was. And I was actually, no pun intended, shocked by Shocker. He did really well too. And I'm glad that they let Christopher Daniels keep it, because this this was the highlight. This was them showcasing our X Division for good reason. Christopher Daniels is definitely a legend of the ring, and this is him in his prime. If you want to see some of the best matches, watch Christopher Daniels from 2002 plus in his TNA career to Ring of Honor, because it's a great career, and this was a great match to remind you how good he was.
Well, and you have to think too, like some of the Ultimate X matches that they had, he was in a lot of the first time matches and a lot of the different style matches they had in the X Division. Daniels was involved with them. You think of, Daniels, Samoa Joe, AJ, they've had some of the best wrestling matches probably in TNA history. Those three guys. So some were with each other, some were against other people. But when I think of TNA, Christopher Daniels is one of the guys I think of.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the big three. I think of, like you said, Daniels, AJ, Samoa Joe, and then Jeff Jarrett. Like those, I feel like those are like the four, like the Mount Rushmore TNA when you think of like the originals. And this match showed why he had his place on that Mount Rushmore TNA, because, like you said, it wasn't the cleanest recently, but this match was pretty clean. And that finisher he delivers, holy crap, it's so smooth.
Right. Well,
Angel Wings.
Yeah, and then like you said, the only other two people that I associate with TNA, right or wrong, is Sting, because this is where he came. This was literally this was his next run after WCW stopped. He had a long stretch with TNA. People might forget or not realize how long that stretch was. That was a long stretch for him. Like he was there for a while. Him and Angle are the two people that I think of, because Angle had a hell of a stretch, a hell of a run at TNA also. So like, those are the only other two people that I associate TNA, even though they've been other places. Like you can clearly say like, from this point to this point, and it's not like 1 year or two, it's like 6 or 7 that these guys, had a great stretch of career there.
I mean,
so,
I'd probably get hate for this, but I honestly think Angle had a better career in TNA than he did WWE. I think that's what solidified his Hall of Fame career. He had a great career in WWE. He obviously, but it was so short. So it's like, if you obviously look at it under a microscope, it's short. So all his matches are great, but TNA was a longer run. So if you put both of them together, Hall of Fame career, but if you take away TNA, can you say if he's a Hall of Famer? It's hard to say, but you put TNA in there and all that amazing work he did. So that's a great point. I honestly think in Sting, I think he really became the icon in TNA. He showed that he didn't need WCW's booking. Like Joker Sting, probably one of the coolest face paints he ever did.
yeah, and the why so serious, the playing on the that's one of my low key, like I mark for that character. I really do. That character, that morphosis that Sting became Joker Sting for a little while. And like you said though, think of the stretches that Sting and Angle, again, I know we're a little bit off topic here, but think of the stretches that they had at TNA. And like you said, throw those stretches away and they don't, say they don't wrestle. Say Angle leaves WWE and retires. Like you said, is he really a Hall of Famer? Maybe, but he wouldn't have gotten in right away. It would have been one of those things where he would have went in, 10 years down the road. But and Sting, who knows? I mean, granted, he had a legacy leaving WCW, but he also showed when he went to TNA, he showed you that he could be a character by himself. Like you said, he proved that he didn't need anybody else. He didn't need the Ric Flairs, even though he had Flair for a little while. He didn't need the Ric Flair to be Sting, if that makes any sense. But anyways, moving on from that, like I said, I think the 4 people you named plus those 2 are in my head are the first people that come to mind for TNA. And obviously you have to put Jarrett in there because it was Jarrett's company at the beginning. And I think Jarrett proved the type of performer he could be if they let them be. He always would get close, and then they, you never know what would have happened if WCW didn't close. He might have had a 10-year stretch at the top of the card for the first time in his career. He had finally gotten to the top of the mountain to king of the mountain. He'd finally gotten there, and then WCW gets bought by Vince. So Jarrett's like, shit, what do I do now?
Right. But I'll start my own company.
Right.
But he basically Michael Scott Paper Company, but he was actually successful for a while.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're 100% right. But it just proves to you that, given the chance, and that's the one thing I will say, everybody kind of poo-poos on Jarrett sometimes, but it proves that he belonged in that upper tier, even though Vince didn't really want to put him there. Vince saw him as a middle card guy, an intercontinental guy at most. He never saw him as a world champion. But anyways, and again, he's going to main event the show, and we'll get there. But so the next match was a 20-man gauntlet for the gold to become the #1 contender for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. So this was a 20-man gauntlet, and essentially every minute somebody new would come out. And then when it got down to the final 2, it was in a pinfall match. I kind of like that. I wish that more matches were like that. Like, you know, think about like the Royal Rumble, some of the iconic, like think about the Batista John Cena when Vince blows both his quads out. Like, think about, or his not his quads, his oh yeah, no, it was his quad. Yeah, I was thinking for some reason
Kevin Nash himself.
Yeah. But like, think of like the situation there. If it had been a pinfall match, it wouldn't have mattered. You know what I mean? So like, there's certain times where that extra gimmick could help, and sometimes people are like, oh, it's too gimmicky. Well, I kind of liked it, honestly. The only thing I will say is at the end of this match, it came down to Abyss and Ron the Truth Killings. Now, again, Ron Killings had already had another match at this point, so he had already wrestled twice, and Abyss was the 20th guy. So Abyss wasn't in there very long until, you know, the match got kicked off. So the one spot that sticks out, unfortunately, was the botched chair crotching, where our Truth, I think, forgot he was supposed to turn the chair up, and he remembered at the last second, so they actually had to do it twice. So it looked goofy as shit, unfortunately, and I hate to harp on that, but that's like the one thing that in this match I really remember. I'm like, man, they botched it. And Mike Tenay did a really good, again, let's give Mike Tenay and Don West a shout out for being a very good low-key commentary team. You know, for Mike Tenay not being a real play-by-play guy, not known as a play-by-play, they do a decent job. And Mike Tenay covered for the thing, saying that Abyss had tunnel vision, and when he wants to get something done in his head, he's going to do it. And sometimes it ends up not benefiting and biting him in the ass, and that's what it did, essentially. So they covered the spot well, thankfully. But again, it was a little bit of a gimmicky match to the point where you didn't really know once it became a wrestling match if it was a hardcore match. Like, they were like, you know, the referee took a bump at one point, the chair was involved, so they were out of the ring a lot, so you couldn't really tell like what the rules were going to be, I guess. So that kind of made it a little iffy, but it was definitely not the worst thing I've ever seen. But like I said, for some reason that botch crotching just sticks out to me.
I like the battle royal that turns into a singles match for the final two. I've always liked that gimmick. TNA was really good at it. They had a lot of, like you said, they had a lot of gimmicks, but this was a good gimmick where, can you imagine the Royal Rumble? 28 of the guys have gone over the rope, or 20 of the girls have gone over the rope, and then the final two, who are both maybe fan favorites, have to fight in a singles match. That crowd would be electric. Or if they're both heels, that crowd would be electric. Like, could you imagine Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan, if it was the Royal Rumble, if they were the final two, how crazy that place would go? You know, and this one is just, like you said, it's just the match at the end was just sloppy, but the battle royal aspect of it and the ending of it was great. AEW actually brought this concept back with the Dynamite, the ring. That's how they do that. They do a battle royal and then the final two. So I've always kind of liked that shtick. And when it's done right, it can be done great. Like if it was a traditional match, say if it was, you know, Ron Killings versus Bobby Roode at the very end, and they had a traditional match, this match probably would have been the match of the night. But it just, like you said, Abyss is a hardcore wrestler, so he had to kind of do a lot of more outside the ring stuff. I will say, though, I popped for Zach Gowen, forgot he showed up for a cup of coffee in TNA. I had to show Emily. I made Emily come over. I'm like, this is the guy I always talk about, because she doesn't understand that my favorite moment with him is, you know, friggin' Brock Lesnar just throwing him down the stairs. How brutal that was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so let's run down the entrance real quick. So you had Bobby Roode, Zach Gowen, Eric Young, Cassidy Riley, Elix Skipper. Those are your first five entrants, followed by Shark Boy, A1, Chris Sabin, Petey Williams, Sonny Siaki. Those are your next five. Then at 11 was Lance Hoyt, Michael Shane, Jarrell Clark, Mikey Batts, and the Outlaw was 15. And then you had Triton, Ron Killings, Apollo, BG James, and Abyss. Those were your 20. So they were all people, essentially, for the most part, that had already wrestled. So, you know, that's using your roster at that point. You know, you have a roster of people. And I like how at the beginning they had Team Canada staggered. So every time, it was like a War Games. Like every time they get the advantage. So that was kind of cool. Like, they're like, oh, can you believe at one point, Don West, like, can you believe the luck of these guys? They just keep coming out. It's like, you kind of just broke the wall, Don. Like that's how they set it up. But yeah, it wasn't bad. It really wasn't. It was, and you think of gimmick battle royals or rumbles. Sometimes you have, you know, rough looking ones. This one really wasn't bad. And like I said, the gimmick at the end of the match, it like you said, and I agree with you, and I said it too, that it's cool to have a different spin on it. It's not, oh, let's have a battle royal, let's have a Royal Rumble. Like it made the match mean something more, and it wasn't copying another company.
Yeah, and can we talk about how Triton never made it in the industry with how big that dude was? I had to look up. He's 6'10", and he is a monster. And just him and Lance Hoyt staring off, aka Lance Archer, was awesome. But I looked him up, and he basically kind of staggered because this was his Terminator Rise of the Machines gimmick, so it probably didn't help that he had a terrible gimmick. But then he would just kind of falter, and then he would get signed to a developmental for WWE, and they would release him. I just don't understand with Vince's affiliation with big guys how this guy never sniffed even more than Florida Championship Wrestling for WWE. He was so big, and he didn't look like he was that bad of a worker.
No, and this was probably back when Vince was like, "Bro, remember when WCW had RoboCop? What if we have a Terminator, bro? Wouldn't that be cool?" Yeah, no. Sorry, Vince. No, it wasn't. Sorry, but I don't know if that's how that went, but I envisioned that's how it went. But
maybe you have to be right.
Maybe it was Triton's actual idea for the gimmick. I don't know, but I feel like Vince was just like, "Bro, RoboCop was so over."
Yeah, but Terminator 3 wasn't. That was the worst, one of the worst Terminator movies out there. And then number 4 made it worse. So no, at least do Terminator 2 and have him be like freaking T-1000 there. Like, have you seen this boy? No. Like, have him be creepy. Like the dude from Scorpion, who...
Yes, he has one leg. His name's Zach Gow, and I see him. He's right over
Robert
there.
Patrick. I couldn't think of his name. Have him be Robert freaking Patrick from Terminator, not like a PG-13 Terminator.
Right. The non-Terminator. But yeah, so again, it was a decent, cool kind of gimmick on a twist on a battle royal. So now in the main event, we're leading up to this. Tito Ortiz, the guest referee in this, which was... he actually didn't do a bad job in the match. I will say, officiating-wise, he was probably one of the officials, where he didn't look that out of place, but he's also been a combat sport person, so he knew. There were a few spots where it was a little bit sloppy, but he didn't. It wasn't, when you bring somebody into the wrestling industry for a match like this, sometimes you can tell that they have no idea what's going on. It was nice that he at least knew what was going on and was able to carry the match the way he did. So it was AJ Styles facing off against the champion Jeff Jarrett, and AJ Styles gets to win in just under 20 minutes.
Wow, that's all I have to say about this match is that match of the night. To be cliche, like we always say, if you're going to watch one match from this card, this is the match. I'm pretty sure it made a lot of TNA's top 10 DVDs because I used to buy their DVDs back in the day. I remember this match very well, and I didn't order this pay-per-view, so it had to have been on a DVD. And for people who are under the age of 30, a DVD is what you used to put to watch movies on before you downloaded them or streamed them.
It was the you have Blu-ray now. It was right before that, but right after VHS. I know people are like, "What's a VHS?" Google it. Go to your Google machine.
But it was a great match. The finish he pulled out, and I love the announcer selling it. I don't even know what the heck to call it. They're like it's spinning freaking
spiral tap.
I know it's the spiral tap, but I mean the actual move itself, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just cool looking. This was AJ, vintage AJ, and I love that they're like, oh, he hasn't used that finish in 2 years, which I looked up. They're right. Holy crap, he barely pulls that move out, and that's a move that I feel like was saved for special moments. And he, getting the strap by using that move, that's an iconic moment for TNA. That him hitting that finish, holding that strap up, and Jeff Jarrett finally being dethroned, the world's champion from NWA. Like it was just. They made a big match feel. It felt like you were watching Tyson Holyfield. Like they did a great job booking this. I was skeptical at first with Tito Ortiz seeing it on the card, but like you said, he was a good official. There was some hokey shit, but overall, this match was a banger. This was our 5-star match.
Right. It definitely, like you said, was the best way you could end a show. And no matter what show it is, like if you have any pay-per-view that has this match at the end, it would hold up with any other show. This would hold up with even a WrestleMania. This match was that good. And like I said, Tito was not out of place. He got involved a little bit towards the end, which does kind of water down AJ's victory a little bit, but not enough to be like, oh, this is terrible. Like this match was a very good match. And to have somebody come into your industry that is already a crossover, he's a mixed martial I can't even say it, a mixed martial artist who is a combat sport veteran type guy, to come in, do the job the way he did. And like I said, he didn't stick out. A lot of times these guest referees or special referees, the match has no flow. This match flowed great. And it was way better than I anticipated it being, put it that way. And like you said, I think I have 7 or 8 different TNA DVDs. I think they're at my mom's house still in the spare bedroom. I have a DVD rack there that I never brought over to our house. And I think there's some of them ones on there. and I don't know if that's on there or not, but if that's one. But I do remember because Tito Ortiz, it was a spectacle. That's exactly what it was, and it turned out to be worth the watch. It really was.
And this is why I think the rumors about Jeff Hardy, just not showing up are true, because if you listen closely, the commentators are like, and both our competitors showed up on time. Like, they purposely put that out there. Like, I don't remember too many instances where announcers are like, and look, the competitors are here on time. Well, no shit. I would hope they'd be. It's a pay-per-view. So
Right.
I think that was a little dig at Jeff, and could potentially even maybe at BG, because they definitely emphasized that. And I do like that when they showed the line of people when AJ was arriving, that's what I was talking about. That's the listeners from the last show. That's that where you walk in, where those fans are waiting. You're like on a loading dock. That's where you wait. And it's the weirdest friggin' thing. That's where I saw the aggro crag from the blooper from our opening. So I think it's kind of cool that they showed that. I'm like, oh, I popped them. Like, I just popped for a waiting area. But that's another thing. That crowd, those are like 800 something people in there, because it's a very small venue, but they were electric the whole night. Like, that's one thing I miss. I'm so glad, like, they're now everything, wrestling's come back to capacity. Double or Nothing at the end of the month, which we have a show on, is going to have a full crowd of 8,000 people. I can't wait. I love the crowd energy. This makes me miss the crowd. Every time we go back and rewatch these pay-per-views, I'm like, damn, I miss the crowd.
Yeah, that's one thing this pandemic has given a lot of more retrospective, not only to fans, but to the wrestlers and to the promotions, how important these fans are. So I hope, if anything, if they learn from anything, and I know Tony Khan was really good at appreciating his fan base. Vince, not as much as he used, Vince has always been Vince, but when the fans come back, the promoters and the companies need to appreciate what they have and show appreciation, because without the fans, like, you remember the first couple months of WWE TV when they had nobody there, like crickets. I mean, and granted, the Thunderdome's not the best thing, but at least you see people there. I know they're not there, but you actually, so, hats off to these guys that went through that, because like you said, without the fans, it doesn't happen.
Like, can you imagine how this match probably would have been without the energy of the crowd? Like, I don't think AJ probably would have done that move, because he did that move for the pop, because
right.
TNA fans were very loyal, and they're still very loyal. Like, they're very big overseas, like we said in the last episode. And shout out to our overseas listeners, because I see that's growing on the analytics.
Mm-hmm.
That's freaking incredible. We appreciate you. I can see why, I'm doing a deep dive of this podcast, doing the history we do, watching AJ Styles and all his promotions, like, another one that TNA career is solidifying his WWE Hall of Fame. It's so nice that these guys are getting recognition, because this match proved why I'm an AJ Styles mark, why I know 100% you're an AJ Styles mark, because he could go. And I used to shit on Jeff Jarrett all the time. This match really opened my eyes. With Jeff Jarrett, may not have the best personality-wise, and the promoting-wise, he definitely took too much from his father. He wasn't really the best promoter. But as a wrestler, you can't deny Jeff Jarrett had skills, and he did a really good figure four. And his gimmick was great. The King of the Mountain, the cockiness. He played off his real-life personality very well. And who would have thought the freaking country singer would have turned into, a main event at TNA?
Right. No, exactly. So I would give this show a solid 6.5, 7. I think that it's comical, because a lot of our shows end up being in that level, and I think that is a good thing in a way. But this show was a sleeper of a pretty good show, I think.
No, I agree. I'd give it about a 6 or a 7 too, but it's also hard to get a 10 or an 8 or a 9. Like, we've had NXT, which I'll let you lead in later, but that have gotten high marks, and some WrestleManias have gotten high marks. But it's hard, because unless the show itself is a banger from bell to bell, it's hard, because things can bring down. This had some moments that kind of brought it down for me, but like you said, those last 4 matches brought this card right up. Those last 4 matches kind of elevated it from like a 4 to a 6 for me.
Right, exactly. It definitely picked up from the tag champions match on. So that's our rundown of TNA Hard Justice 05. We hope you guys like it. We have, like I said, we planned, I brought this up the last episode, or maybe the episode before, that we plan to follow TNA 05 as we go through the year, since the years line up. So we're going to go, in June, we'll have the next pay-per-view. So it'll kind of give us a little bit of a chronological look at TNA 05, which is pretty cool, I think. Coming up next week, though, we've decided that we're going to do NXT TakeOver, and it's going to be, I think it was the 5th ever pay-per-view event for NXT TakeOver. It's NXT TakeOver Unstoppable, and on top of that card, you have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So this should be this is when NXT was just starting to really get going to where fans were like, dude, NXT, so just figured I would, give you guys a little teaser and let you know what was going on there.
No, absolutely. I'm excited about the doing NXT. I'm also excited when to drop everyone. I'm sure everyone's seen some teaser videos. I actually got a message from someone saying, "What the hell are those videos?" First, shout out to Andy Fusillo. He actually correctly guessed that all that little binary code that you saw led to May 19th. All those promo videos we kept seeing Kane wake up May 19th. So, what the hell is May 19th? Well, I'll tell you. Our website officially launches.
See No Evil was May 19th.
Yeah, well, it was. And Chris Van Vliet's birthday. Happy birthday, Chris Van Vliet. You're one of my favorite podcasters. But it's also the launch of our website, which is www.pap.com. So www.pap.com. But easier, literally www.pap.com. We'll put the link up on socials later today. YouTube is going to have the video. It's going to show it off. I'm excited about it. Can't wait for you guys to see it, get our feedback. I've already tested it out. It's mobile friendly. Works great on pretty much any mobile phone, but please give me feedback if it doesn't. All of our latest episodes instantly drop there too. I've put the algorithm. It took me forever to figure it out, but now whenever we have a new episode, so this episode will be on there at 5 o'clock today. So you'll be able to have our last episodes, have a player right on the website. So that way, if you don't have any of these apps to listen to, you can listen to us there too. And it has all of our socials, everywhere you want to find us. And then it has feedback. It's got the bios about the two podfathers, Roland and Tim. And then, it's got my bio on there if you want to see it, but you don't have to. And then, like I said, it's got, the feedback for you to let us know, hey, you suck, or we like this. Or if you want to go back, read some show notes that we have, we talk about the things, see what our upcoming episodes are. So that launches May 19th. I'm really excited for you all to see it.
Yeah, it should be pretty cool to have our own website. We've grown from pretty much having Podbean and Facebook to having, stuff as huge as Spotify and iHeartRadio and YouTube. So we're definitely getting bigger, not getting too big though. I think it's one of those things where it's a natural progression and evolution, if you will, and we're growing appropriately. So I hope that the fans enjoy the ability to view us and listen to us in different avenues, different areas. You can, like I said, and at one point we talked about this a while back when we started the YouTube videos, maybe we'll start actually having videos too at some point, or having live shows. I mean, I don't think we're 100% ready for something like that yet, based on all the trouble we had last week. But we're getting there, and we hope you guys are digging it.
No, I agree. I'm glad that we're growing in the right way, and without the three of us together, like, it takes all three of us. We're a team to, everything down to producing an episode. We couldn't do this without Tim. Holy crap, Tim, I didn't realize how hard your job was, just trying to, run the behind the scenes stuff. And Roland, you did an excellent job driving the show. I don't know how you did it, because I don't think I could have driven the show, but without one of us, I definitely feel like this show is not as fun. But with all three of us, I have fun every week, and I'm glad that you guys are listening and receptive, and that's why I want to give you an avenue. So please make sure you like, follow, and subscribe, and leave us comments, because we want to know what you like, what you don't like. I mean, so far you've shown that TNA has been the highest listened episode on every platform, so that's why we decided to, like you said, do this deep dive. And I can't wait to do Slammiversary next month, because that's like their WrestleMania. So see what's in store. And NXT next week. Like, how can you not get excited to watch some of these great old matches and get to talk about them?
Exactly. So, I mean, that being said, hopefully you all have a good week. Hopefully, you stay safe. The pandemic is starting to, knock on wood, starting to slow down. People are getting out and doing more things, like Tim had mentioned, previously, and like Mongo mentioned this past week, just in this episode, that, crowds are coming back. So that's awesome. So if anybody sees Tim also between now and then, please let him know that we missed him. And we need him to come back. We need him to be unbroken. So hopefully, if anybody sees him out and about, try, approach with caution, but try to direct him back to the light. don't let him come back to being unbroken. And all joking aside, yeah, Tim does a fantastic job of holding down the fort for us here and keeping us in the right direction. So, that being said, we look forward to talking to you guys next week. So until then, I'm Roland Fulis.
And I'm Mongo.
And this was Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.
Tim, come back. There's a Kevin Owens match next week.
That's why we did it.
I hope you're all having a nice day.